Welcome to the Forever Cash Life Real Estate Investing Podcast with your hosts, Jack and Michelle Bosch. Together, let's uncover the secrets to building true wealth through real estate and living a purpose-driven life.
Hello everyone, this is Jack Bosch speaking, and again, this is my second attempt. I just tried it and it just didn't work. Super excited to be with you today for Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday is obviously our once a week we come live and with a teaching piece on some of the aspects of our amazing land flipping method, right? Today I'm actually in multiple places streaming, right? I'm streaming in our traditional group. I'm streaming in our group that we're getting started on January 18th with our 5-day Land Profit Master session where we give you the basics, but also mastery of land flipping, right? So we're going to talk about both of these things and guide you to become the CEO of your land flipping business, guide you to the place that you can go and be literally have run 6 and potentially even 7-figure land business from the comfort of your home. And this is not exaggerated because we have students that within a matter of, like, let's say about half a year, get to the, well, even sometimes in a matter of 3 to 4 months, get into 6 figures, in a matter of a year, get to the 7 figures, and run it all from the comfort of their home. So you can do the same thing. Now, we're starting January 18th, so if you're watching this in our traditional Facebook group, make sure you go to landprofitmaster.com and register for this session that happens in a different Facebook group, and register there to set up to register so that you can be part of that event. So what we're going to talk about today in Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday, we are going to talk about how to value land, right? So typically we talk about 5 different ways to value land. And I'm going to dive into one of them in particular today, right? So there's multiple different ways that you can value land. One of them is assessed value. The assessed value is not 100% reliable, obviously it never is, but the assessed value in most states outside of California give you at least an estimate of what the ballpark, the big ballpark that property could be worth. Like, because, for example, each state, and sometimes it's county by county, assesses a property they have a key on how they get from market value to assessed value. So market value does not equal assessed value. Assessed value does not equal market value. Instead, what's happening is that assessed value is usually a percentage of market value. Now, if you do this in Arizona, assessed value is usually about 2/3 of market value. If you do that in Arkansas, about assessed value is typically about 20% of market value. So right there, different states have different set of rules. You can go with one quick phone call to the county. You can see, hey, what's kind of like the ballpark figure, the rule of thumb of where you assess properties, where the assessed value is in relation to the market value. That's number one. Second way you can get values is obviously by comparable sold properties. Whatever other properties, similar properties in the neighborhood have sold, that's your comparable, right? Sold. The next one is if there's no sold comparables, you go after listed comparables, right? Listed comparables is the third way, right? If there's nothing sold, but there's properties listed, those people who list this property, particularly if they're a realtor, they didn't just take their list price out of thin air, but they kind of did some research on historic sales, right? That has something to do with it. Then you can also go by size. You can adjust for sizes. But the way that I want to talk about today is by backing into the value of the property by the value of the surrounding houses. So I literally actually this morning right now talked to a student of ours that has 6 properties under contract and 2 more coming in. And on the 2 that he came in, he needed my advice on exactly how to value that property. So we jumped in, a little demonstration, and what it turns out is that indeed in that area, in the immediate area, there's no sales of lots that have happened in the last few years. Having said that, there are some houses that have sold in the area for between $300,000 and $900,000. Now, that's a pretty big range, but there are some things that you can pay attention to, and that's what I want to share with you today. So the first thing that what we could pay attention in that case was if there's no land sales comparables, if there's no land listed in the area, it means one of two things. Either there's no demand or there's no supply. In this case, it looked like there was no supply. It looks like everyone holding on to their land and nobody's selling to it, which is actually a good sign. Because typically, if there's no demand, you see a lot of supply, you see a lot of listings, and nothing sells. In this case, there was like 3 or 4 properties, land properties in a other area, a couple of miles over that wasn't as good as an area, was clearly indicating the house values were lower, much lower, the lot values are much lower. They sold right away. So we know, and Lori, I see Lori says just closed another deal yesterday for a profit of $14,500. Congratulations, Lori! I'm super excited about that. She posted in our in the other group. So again, we go through this and we go back. It's like in that area that's not as good, there's properties that came up on market and they sold right away. So that makes me believe, okay, great, that if we put a property on this, if our student puts a property on that market in that area, it should sell very quickly. But what's the value of that lot? There's no listings, there's no sales, right? Therefore, there's nothing with nothing with different kind of sizes and things like that. What do we do? Well, we could look at the assessed value, which gives us one pointer, but then the other thing to do is to look at the house sales in the area. Now, here's the thing. Typically, as a rule of thumb, the land on which a house sits is worth anywhere from like 15 to 30% of the total house value. So if that house sold for $300,000, the land might be worth between 15%, so $30,000, $45,000, and all the way to like $60,000, $75,000. Okay, that's a pretty good big range though. So how do we go closer into that? So in this case, what we found is that there was one house that had sold just a few months ago for $300,000, one house that had sold for $910,000, and one house that had sold for $850,000. So first of all, we looked at why is there such a big difference between the $300,000 house and the $900,000 house? And it became very quick, very obvious. All we needed to do is plug the address of one of them into Google Maps to the aerial picture and see. The $300,000 house was 1,400 square feet. It was an old house. And it was on a very small lot. The $900,000 house was a big, almost 5,000 square foot house, 4,800 square foot house, with a pool, with a guest house, on a property that was 4 times bigger than the other one. Well, that right there, that means, and now what we need to do is look at, well, how does the other property look like? How does the property that we want to have under contract look like compared to that? Well, we looked at that and we realized that the property that the student has under contract or wants to get under contract is almost as big as the big property with a $900,000 house on it. So therefore, okay, the $300,000 house gets kicked out. It's no longer a comparable because it's a rickety small house, an old house on a tiny lot. It's not comparable. So we kicked it out. Now we have the 2 other houses, $850,000, $900,000. We look at the size of the lots, look at road access, all looks very similar. Great, these are good comparables. So now based on that, what is the value of the land? Well, the value of the land is now we got to backtrack. We got to work our way into the land, into the price of that. So let's look at so first of all, I pulled up on Zillow, I put out some pictures of that house. And the pictures of the house showed that this was a beautiful, beautiful home. But it wasn't a home that was great with crazy kind of like, it wasn't gold inlays on the wall. It wasn't, I don't know, mahogany wood floors. It wasn't custom everything. It was a pretty standard built home. It was furnished nice. It had a couple of custom kind of cabinets and so on. But other than that, it was a standard home. Now we know that with a standard home like that, it costs about $100 to $100. In this case, perhaps it was a little bit more upscale house. It cost perhaps $120 a square foot, $110, $120 a square foot to build a house like that. So a builder that buys his stuff not at Home Depot but at the big wholesale places where he gets lumber cheaper, he gets floors cheaper, he needs tile, he gets a 50% discount on the tile over what you get when you walk into the same store. He builds, and he has a crew of people that work for him for years. They're efficient, they're effective, they're fast. He builds a house like that for about $110, $120 a square foot. So 4,800 square foot times 110, 120, let's put it at $600,000 maximum price to actually go vertical and build that house. Does that make sense, guys? If you're watching, and whichever one of the Facebook groups you're watching, give me a thumbs up, give me a heck yes or something like that to make sure that you're following me. Are you following me here, right? Put it in here, put it into the chat box. Okay, great. So the next thing is now that based on that, we now say, okay, $600,000 of the $900,000 are gone because that's what it requires to build the house. Now, if you sell that house for $900,000, you got to pay a realtor about 6% commission. That's about $50,000. 54 technically, but let's say 50. Usually you can negotiate a little bit. So therefore, it's now $50,000. So of the $900,000, 600 went to build the house, 50 went to the realtor. So what is left? 650. So it's $250,000 left for other things. And what are other things? Number one, the actual the land, and number two, the profits for the builder. The builder doesn't want to work for free, so the builder wants to make about a 15-20% profit on this. So if the builder makes a $100,000 profit on his $600,000 house, he's going to be happy, right? He's going to be happy. He builds 10 houses like that a year. He's perfect. He's perfectly happy. He makes $1 million in a year. Great. So now, or even if he builds only 3-4 houses a year, makes $300,000-$400,000. He's happy with that, right? Most people will be with $300,000-$400,000 in income. So now the next step is, so if the builder makes $100,000, we're at $750,000. That leaves $150,000 for what? The land. The land. In this case, the land is worth up to $150,000. So now, basically, now that's retail. However, will the deal work for a builder if he has to buy the land for $150,000? Yes, it will, because he pays $150,000, then he pays $100,000, then he pays $600,000 for the lot. So we're turning this calculation around right now and double checking thing, right? So he built the so he buys the land for $150,000. He puts $600,000 in the house. He's at $750,000. He sells it for $900,000. The realtor gets $50,000. He makes $100,000. Works both ways. Great. So therefore, this lot is worth $150,000 based on this calculation, and that happens to be about 25%, or actually in this case, about 17 to 18%, 17% off the purchase of the total value of the property. Great. It works. It makes sense. Now, how much did the student have to deal on the contract for? $50,000. Now, is that a deal? Yes, he wasn't sure, but we came to the conclusion that it is a deal. Because if he has that deal on the contract for $50,000 and the deal makes sense to build a 4,800 square foot house, even if he sells it at $150,000, he now can go to the market and sell this property for $100,000. Let's say if he makes a $50,000 profit, sells it for $100,000, which now means that the builder who buys it and builds that house has an extra $50,000 in either profit, or the builder can put an extra $50,000 into these kind of deals, into upgrades for the property, adds an additional guest house or a pool or an extra bathroom or landscaping or other things like that on that property. So it means it gives buffer. It gives the builder more profit or more buffer to put more stuff into the property. Does that make sense, guys? That's what I wanted to share today. So it's a very simple calculation. If you assume that a reasonable house, now I'm not talking Beverly Hills luxury homes, right? So, right, that's an extra $50,000 split for the land, for the build, and it's a $50,000 profit for the land flipper. So my student was very happy to hear that, because he has 2 lots like that in kind of similar areas. One of them, the houses sell for about $700,000. One of them, the houses sell for $900,000. So as a result, he can reasonably expect to potentially make $50,000 a deal. And even if he has to drop it below that, he's still going to make like 25, 30 grand on each of these deals. And he just wasn't sure. He wasn't sure how to value it. So we went through that. That gave me the idea that for today's Winning Wednesday, I'm going to share that with you guys. All right? So and if you think about it, it's not hard. It's not hard. You just have to know these things. It's simple. All you need to know is for an average home, it costs about $100. Now, if it's a starter home, it's just a cookie cutter starter home. There's builders out there that can build for $70, $80 a square foot. But a nice home costs $100, $110, $120 a square foot. And you get into the luxury area once it costs more than $120. Now, I'm not talking about the Beverly Hills custom home with $1 million chandeliers, right? That's not it. I'm talking about a nice looking 2-story house, 4,800 square feet with a garage for 2-3 cars, but it's not imported stuff from all over the world. It's regular stuff in the house. It's just a nice looking house. You can obviously go and build houses for $400 a square foot if you put like the finest of the finest of the finest of everything in there. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about these are nice areas, half an hour away from major cities in a certain part of the country where people make good money and want to live a little bit further out there on an acre or so. And that makes sense. So in those kind of houses, if it's a small starter home, simple starter home, just like simple, not even granite countertops, so it's $80 a square foot. If it's a standard home, it's $100 a square foot. If it's a little bit more luxury, it's $120 a square foot. These are numbers that you can use as kind of rule of thumbs, and then from that you can backtrack into the actual value of the property. Hope that makes sense, guys. With that said, again, register for the Land Profit Masterclass at www.landprofitmaster.com or landprofitmasterclass.com. We're going to hold that in one of our Facebook groups starting January 18th. So go in there. If obviously watching this in the second group here, there where I'm pointing, then you're already in the group. But if not, but still register for it, so you get the workbooks and all the things as we get closer to it. If you're watching this in our regular big Facebook group, then make sure you come over and register at landprofitmaster.com for January 18th. We're going to go 5 days and teach you all these things from A to Z to understand the basics, and not just the basics, but really give you the mastery in land flipping, which land flipping is on fire, people. Like, look at there's one lady who posted a $15,000, $14,000 profit right now. There's deals that are closing today, the day before Christmas, with $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 profits. So make sure you guys get going on that. You guys register for it, and also if you have missed last week, a couple of days ago, we did in that other group that you have access to if you register at Land Profit Master, we did a session about who are our sellers. So we talked to you about it, and we're going to go like a couple times a week and give you already some preview about what's coming on January 18th. All right, with that said, landprofitmaster.com. Register right now. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Enjoyed this episode? Then make sure you like, subscribe, and post your comments and questions below the video. We're looking forward to hearing from you.